that you, Nick?
It's my washing machine. I just thought that. Hang on.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Jumps Racing podcast here in association with horseracing.net. As always, hosted by myself, Bobby Beavers. Delighted to be joined alongside Nick Seddon. Nick, as always, great to see you, great to work with you, and what a fantastic couple of days racing we saw at Sandown, up at Musselburgh, and of course the Dublin Racing Festival too.
Yeah, hi Bobby, good evening. Some weekend, isn't it? Perhaps the best weekend we've had so far for racing action. So much to talk about. 8 Grade 1s in Dublin, a Grade 1 at Sandown as well, Cheltenham Trials Day, Wetherby. We had a story at Wetherby as well. So much to talk about, and I'll try not to think about my war wound too much. I'm a wounded man tonight.
Just to let you know as well, that's a bit of a private joke just for the viewers and the listeners now. In a word, Nick has burnt his finger. He's currently feeling very sorry for himself. He's got his finger in some water now, in some ice cold water. Just hopefully that finger will not blister, but I wouldn't be too hopeful. Hopefully he can get through the podcast and he can cry into his tuna bake later on. Right then, as always, you can watch us on YouTube. You can subscribe on YouTube at horseracing_net. If you want to listen to the audio as well, it's Spotify, SoundCloud, and Apple Music. And I just want to say, just before we get stuck into the podcast, thank you to everybody that's been listening and watching as well. The figures are increasing week on week, so it's great that you are getting involved and enjoying what we are doing. Right then, Nick, let's look back then at what we saw over the weekend. And we're going to start first with a certain Delta work. Very impressive what we saw on Sunday. Is he a Gold Cup contender in your opinion?
Well, I think he's got to be, hasn't he? Really, really impressive. You know, I think the big question coming into this race, and it may have been an unfair question, was the fact surrounding Delta work and whether he could confirm the form of that Savills Chase win, because I think we said on here, I mean, I was very much of the opinion that Kenboy and Presenting Percy were going to come on for that run and would be improved models next time and must be too much for Delta work. But you know what? It was ultra game. They all jumped the last pretty much in unison, and neither Kenboy nor Presenting Percy could get past. And, you know, it just boosts the form of that RSA last year, which top of the game, who's injured this season, won. In second and third was Santini and Delta Work, and they are now second and third favourites for the Gold Cup behind a certain Albion Photo. It's a really interesting Gold Cup picture. It's a wide open Cheltenham Gold Cup. We've had a few in recent years, and I'm starting to think now as well that the market is probably the right way around, because we've got this favourite in Albion Photo in 7-2, and really he's probably one of the only ones in the market that hasn't had their reputation dented. I don't know what you think, Bobby. If you look at the likes of Lost in Translation, who was turned over last time, disappointed at Kempton, they all seem to have something to prove, and Santini has a bit of a reputation of being a bit of a slow coach. So, I mean, Albion Photo so far, we don't see a lot of him, but he certainly wins his races.
And that's the... I do apologise. I've got a really bad cough at the moment. And I do apologise if that does appear throughout the podcast as well. But yeah, I think with Albion Photo, it's interesting with him because what we've seen, what he's done, you know, he is the rightful favourite. It is a wide open Gold Cup as well. But what I'm finding like this year, and it may have been in recent years as well, I may have just been walking around with my eyes closed, I don't know, and not really seeing it. But every time we've been talking, when people in racing have been talking, a horse wins a race. We take Delta Weight, for example, winning the Irish Gold Cup, you know, straight away. Is he a Gold Cup contender at Cheltenham? And we're throwing all these horses into the mix. I think it's good for the sport because it shows how wide open and competitive it is for this year, which is absolutely great. You mentioned Santini. Obviously, you've got to take him very seriously. But as you said, he's got that reputation, hasn't he, of being a bit of a slow coach. Obviously, Kenboy, that was second behind Delta Work. Of course, he won the Gold Cup at the Punchestown Festival, didn't he? Obviously, he got Presenting Percy, who was favourite for the race 12 months ago. And then, you know, should Jet turn up? I thought Jet ran an absolute cracker on Sunday, as he just boosted his each way chances should Jet turn up at Presby Park in March. But it's very, very competitive in all fairness. I think Delta Work is definitely a leading contender. But at the same time, I won't be surprised if Alboon Photo won it for a second consecutive year.
Yeah, you know what? I think the thing is with Alboon Photo is because we've been treated to some spectacular Cheltenham winners in the last 10 years. I'm thinking of, the likes of Denman and Corto. We look for these real standout stars when we think of the Gold Cup. And sometimes, with these races, it doesn't always produce one. But Alboon Photo is a top-class chaser. And maybe we are just, trying to find something to beat him when he is the standout performer. But with that being said, there is one that's sticking out in the market to me at the moment. I think he's way too overpriced if you bear everything in mind, and that's Native River. He's a Gold Cup winner, within the last 2 years. He ran perfectly well at Aintree back in December at the Beach Chase meeting in the many clouds. If the rain starts to come, which it has been doing, I can't see any reason why he would be 14-1. I mean, we'll find out more about him on Saturday. He goes in Denman Chase. We'll chat about that a bit later on. But yeah, I think there's a lot of horses above him that maybe have a couple of cracks and chinks in their armour. And I think we know all about Native River. We know that he's going to need conditions perhaps to be in a certain way for him to be seen to best effect. But I'd certainly be putting £2 each way on him at the moment at about 14-1.
Oh, I say at 14-1, double figure price as well. I think he's definitely worth an each way. Let's talk about the machine. Where do we start with this chap? Faugheen the machine, 3 from 3, chasing now, absolutely brilliant. And the more I look at it, novice chasing at 12 years old, sometimes you just can't make it up, can you? And it was absolutely brilliant. And what I'd mention as well was the crowd at Leopardstown. I know Tom Lee, of course, Kerry Lee, one of our ambassadors at horseracing.net. Her brother Tom Lee does a lot of work on RTE over in Ireland. He actually filmed the crowd. The crowd reaction, and it was brilliant. Everybody got behind Faugheen to see him win again over fences, and he's just an absolute warrior. He's a superstar. There's so much to like about him, and he's a real fan favourite as well. And should fingers crossed everything be okay, it goes to Cheltenham. If he wins again at the festival, that'd just be phenomenal, wouldn't it? The roar, the crowd, it'd just be fantastic.
Yeah, it would. There's only so many things you can say here because it was just some story, wasn't it? I really fancied Battle Over Doyen. I, rightly or wrongly, I always lean towards reservations with a 12-year-old because of their age. I mean, that's ageist, but you get the feeling that the wheels would come off sooner or later if they're running so consistently and so often. But I mean, Faugheen just turned up again, fresh as anything from over Christmas, won his second Grade 1 over fences. Yeah, the bandwagon rolls on now to the Cheltenham Festival. He's favourite, and I really hope he wins. But I tell you what, I made an outrageous claim on the road to Cheltenham this week on the website, and he owes us absolutely nothing. And wherever he goes, it will be a treat. But bearing in mind that he's a 12-year-old, bearing in mind that he's a top-class performer over hurdles, he's won a championship race over hurdles, I would be very tempted to chuck him in a championship race over fences. Bobby's just taking his headphones out. I'll say that again.
Sorry.
In mind everything, I'd be very tempted to chuck him in a championship race over fences. Now I know that I know he's 12, and I know that his jumping would need to improve at that sort of level. But why not? Why not just answer all the questions? Because what if he goes to the JLT or the RSA? There's plausible cases for each, and he wins by an absolute street, and people start saying, "Oh no, he could have won a Gold Cup." Bearing in mind how open the Gold Cup is, how open the Ryanair Chase is. Would you support that, or do you think that that's just daft and he's a novice and leave him in novice company?
No, listen. With Faugheen, with the machine, the superstar that he is. I take on board what you're saying in terms of, a wide open Gold Cup, etc., etc. But for me, would you not rather him go back to the festival, win another Grade 1, delight everybody, the crowd, Paul Townend, Rich Ritchie, everybody, Willie Mullins, etc., the whole yard, and see him go and win like a JLT or an RC? Personally, I'd run him in the JLT. That would be my theory. Let him go for the JLT. Let him go and win that. And then, as a 13-year-old, who knows what might happen with him? They may, to be honest with you, if he goes there and he wins the JLT, whether or not he turns up to Aintree in 4 weeks, 3 weeks' time afterwards, whenever it is after the festival, or whether or not he bypasses Aintree, goes to Punchestown and runs in the top novice chase there, 12 years old, being a grand servant, would then turn around and say, right, enough's enough? Or, because, as you say, he's a 12-year-old, he doesn't run like a 12-year-old. We've said that before. He does not run like he's a 12-year-old. You wouldn't think he were 12. He's blatantly still in love with the game. So they may even say, well, you know what? We're not going to retire him. We're going to keep going. And at 13, he might just crop up in the Cheltenham Gold Cup of 2021 or maybe the Ryanair or something. I don't know. But I think for this season, Nick, I take on board what you're saying. I think for this season, just keep it simple with him. Keep it basic. And that's it now. Just Chelsea all the way. That's what I would do anyway.
Yeah, it's a fine argument. And of course, the horse comes first and he should stay in novice company. But I do just have this sort of feeling that there might be a sense of what if, because I think if he does win at the Cheltenham Festival, this was me, I'd probably bypass Aintree because he's an Irish trained horse and sign him off at the Punchestown Festival. Or, if he does have the enthusiasm for the game, perhaps move him into something like Hunter Chase's, a bit of a, less demanding sphere, because, at the end of the day, we don't want something to happen to him. He's a grand old horse and he should retire when it's right. But I just get this feeling that if he does bolt up in one of these novice chases, and he could well do, because they're as open as the Gold Cup is at the moment, there might be a sense of what if. But that being said, there would be one heck of a step up in class from winning a Grade 1 novice. Labago Ra has shown this season. To win a Grade 1 novice is one thing. She won 2. To win a championship race is a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, just apologies to everybody. I'm suffering this week. I've got a horrible cough. I'm made up with cold as well, and that's why if you are watching, you keep seeing me take my headphones out and going to the side to cough, so I'm not coughing down the microphone there. So apologise to people listening to my cough. One person that is listening to my cough is our producer Seb, because he's listening to the podcast, making sure everything's all right. Right, anyway, enough about me feeling sorry for myself. Honeysuckle, the Irish champion hurdle, is she now going to go to the champion hurdle at the Cheltenham Festival and go and win that as well? She has got a great chance. She's undefeated, and there is so much to like about her as well.
There is so much to like about her, and the answer is yes, she should go. Whether she does, I don't know. I keep thinking about this in my mind, and it is up. I do think it is rather up in the air. We all know that she's got this entry in the mares, and to be quite honest, she shouldn't be anywhere near the mares. She'd win it doing handstands. And there also is this looming threat of Beanie Desjeux as well. She is in a similar sort of situation where she's far too good for the mares hurdle. She could go for the stayers, could go for the champion, and she would run well. So there's probably a bit of a game of chess going on between the Henry de Bromhead team and the Willie Mullins team. Are either of them going to go for the champion? Are they both going to go for one or the other? So it will be interesting. I mean, if she does win, personally, if she does go to the champion hurdle, I would have her as favourite. She wasn't. I mean, she wasn't flashy in the way that she won on Saturday, but she got the job done. She eyeballed a seasoned Grade 1 performer in Petit Mouchoir, who I'm I like more by the start. I really do think he's a brilliant campaigner. He's been so consistent so far this season. Obviously, he has his limitations as far as a Grade 1 is concerned, in winning one, but he's been brilliant, and you really can't write him off from an each-way perspective. The fact that Dava Star got quite close to them is something of a concern because he was stepping out of, minor and novice company. But yeah, she got the job done. She's really impressive in doing so. She'd get a mare's allowance from everyone except the mares, obviously. I'd have her form down as stronger than Epitante's. It is a muddling renewal this year. And if she did turn up, barring Beanies this year and a real joust that would be, I'm not sure what would beat her.
Chacun Poursoir, if I said that correctly. I think it's one of those sort of names where it don't quite sound right in a Yorkshire accent. But Chacun Poursoir won the Dublin Chase, got the job done, beating stable companion Min. A great performance what we saw over the weekend from him.
Yeah, not only is it looking like he will go, it's looking like he might win it as well. That's how impressed I was with that performance. It's worth noting that Richie very, very rarely races his very good horses in that sort of scenario. And I got the sense that he was trying to work out the pecking order of his horses as much as we were, to put him up against Min, who we know he's a bit of a Marmite character. I love him. I think he's great. But and he's a top-class performer in his own right. He's a 5-time Grade 1 winner. He's won the Dublin Chase for the past 2 years. He is vulnerable against a truly top-class horse like the likes of Altior. So, if anything, it's no dampener on Min that he was beaten. It's a real compliment to Chacun Poursoir that he was able to beat him. And when push came to shove, it was a real tactical battle. He pulled clear and won rather readily. And, that was in the manner of a top-class performer. I think we can just ignore his reappearance run where he was beaten by a Plutar. And yeah, he just looks something serious to me. He really, really does. And it's worth noting as well that he beat Defi de Soy as a novice at the Punchestown Festival last season. And yeah, it's going to turn into some 3-way joust now, you'd think, because we've got the previous champion Altior returning to defend his ground, and he's the outsider of 3, 7-2. That might change after Saturday at Newbury. Defi de Soy is the 2-1 favourite, and Chacun Poursoir 5-2, and I can't split them at the moment. I think Altior's booked in for 3rd personally, and it could be a real match between the new guard and really one to savour.
Let's just turn our attentions as well, Nick, to Wetherby. Of course, it was the Touton novices chase meeting. There's one by the likes of Baywing in the past, and not forgetting a certain Black Lion who won this race and then went on to win the RSA at the Cheltenham Festival. It went in the way this year of New Tide for Kim Bailey and David Bassett. That horse has completed a hat-trick of wins, and should he turn up in the RSA at the Cheltenham Festival, hopefully he can run a great race. It'd be great for the Touton novices boost there as well. But I want to draw your attention to the what we saw very impressive in the Open Hunters Chase, where Manella Rocco for John Joe O'Neill and Derek O'Connor beat the odds-on favourite there, Hazel Hill, at 1-4. Well, firstly, what a great week it's been for Derek O'Connor, steering OK Corral to victory in the Sky Bet Chase at Doncaster. Manella Rocco winning this Open Hunters Chasers at Hunters Chase, should I say, at Wetherby. But Manella Rocco is as well, second in a Cheltenham Gold Cup. And with him as well, I think if I got this right, apart from his win last time out, I don't mean obviously what we saw over the weekend, but the time before, because he's won back-to-back now. But the time before that, I think his last win, was about 2016, if I've got that right, in the 4-miler at the Cheltenham Festival, beating a certain Native River. Whatever happened to him?
No idea. Yeah, remarkable story. And I think an interesting angle in to start with is that he won the 358 at Wetherby. Now, did you notice anything about this over the weekend? Any thoughts on it?
I think it worked.
I do as well.
Yeah. I mean, as I say, I said this last week. I said, you've got to try it. And I said, at the same time, we get your 246 at Sheffield, we get your 312 at Perry Bar, et cetera, et cetera. Greyhound racing has done it for donkey's years, so I think it helps, and yeah, for me, absolutely fine. I think it works, and I'd definitely continue to do this as well, because then you don't get. You've got the chance then to not really miss any racing, which is obviously at the end of the day what you want to do. You've got time to do like previews in there as well. So for myself, I think it worked, and yeah, let's keep it going.
Now, as far as I'm aware, I think we've got it again on Thursday. Don't quote me. It's Monday at the time of recording. Thursday, the likes of Donny, I think, are on Strange Times. So keep an eye on here.
And Huntingdon.
Yeah, so I think it was a good start, and hopefully it carries on turning results. But back to the racing, and you know what, Vanilla Rocco is a real curious case, because it was one of the most alarming falls from grace I've seen for a really long time. Because, as you say, he won the 4 miler in 2016 and didn't win for 4 years, near enough. Shaped well once or twice, but generally never really hit the same heights. I mean, at one point, he was rated as high as 165, 166. That's because he was good enough to finish second in the 2017 Gold Cup. And then it was just a string of really lackluster efforts in absolutely everything, from, the Irish Grand National to the Ultima at Cheltenham. Nothing went his way. When we saw him in November, he was running off a mark of 142. So he'd slipped about 20 odd pounds in the handicap and was still struggling. And then out of the blue, he turned up and he won a Hunter's Chase at Warwick, and he's really thriving now, isn't he? He seems to really enjoy this code. It's obviously far easier. And he took a really notable scalp in the form of Hazel Hill, last year's Fox Hunter's Chase winner. And, he's very young for this sphere. He's 10 years old, sorry. And you imagine he's going to go to Cheltenham with every chance in the Fox Hunters now.
So this is part of the podcast where we ask a question, and we've had some great responses from the questions we've asked in more recent weeks, and thank you for your responses. And we've got a great question this week. We've had lots of interaction on social media as well, and the question was, should there be a limit on how many runners an owner or trainer can have in the Grand National? And we got some good responses, people for it, people against it, etc., etc. So we're just going to read a few out for you now. This is what people are saying on Facebook. Kathy says, yes, the system needs to be fairer, but without compromising the proven ability of a horse. Duncan says, no, if the owner pays the bills and wants to enter, they should be able to make as many entries as they want. And another nice one here from Barbara saying, don't care who puts the horses up for the National, as long as all jockeys and horses get safely home. I've just handpicked a few of them. Mixed responses, in all fairness. Nick, what's your opinion about it?
It's something that I'm pretty firmly in one camp over the other for, and I think there certainly should be limits. I don't think there's any. This question spanned from last week when the Grand National entries came out, and of the 105, Gordon Elliott was responsible for 18 in the Grand National. Now, I just don't think there's any need for it. I understand that. But
18 are not going to turn up at his. Let's be honest. Not all 18 are going to run on.
No, but he had 11 runners in last year's race, and I just think that's far too many. That's more than a quarter of the field. And I understand that Gordon Elliott is a serious operation in Ireland. One of, if not the biggest, and he's got hundreds of horses in training. And it might be that he does have and did have 11 horses good enough to run in last year's Grand National. It's probably the same case this year, but I don't think we want a situation where he's just farming the race. It's the same sort of argument in the flat, where who benefits from Coolmore and Ballydoyle having 8 of the 11 runners in the Futurity Trophy or 9 in the Derby. Nobody benefits. And I think the interesting thing with the Grand National is it's so competitive these days to get in it, never mind win it. Yeah. Because of the prize money, that there's no need for it. I mean, it's just something that I don't agree with at all. Gordon Elliott had 11 runners in the Grand National last year. Willie Mullins was the next with 4. In terms of owners, Gigginstown were responsible for 8. Plus, you have to remember that Outlander and Don Poli were sold very near the deadline, so they could well have had 10 had they have held on to. The next two after that were JP Mcmanus and Trevor Hemmings with 3 each. That is more like what I imagine it to be. I remember the Irish Grand National. I don't know whether it was last year or the year before, but Gigginstown had so many runners in the race that I think they had 12 last year in the Irish Grand National, that we were using ludicrous cloth caps. It's a commentator's nightmare. It detracted from the commentary on the race. I remember, I think it was Jerry Hannon might have been commentating, and he concentrated on the first 5 all the way around because it was such a minefield trying to work out who was, Sir Deschamps and who was somebody else from Gigginstown. My mind's gone blank, but I think there should be a control. I think there is a feeling of common sense for all that Gigginstown are so powerful, and they're responsible for, a handful of the latest Grand National winners rule the world. Tiger Roll, of course, Gold Cup winners, Don Cossack. They deserved the money that they put into the sport. Of course, they should have runners in all these big races, but I think there is a limit. I don't see why they should be allowed to have more than 5. I think if they
So do you think it should be capped then?
I certainly do, yeah. I think that it would give them the opportunity to put their strongest 5 in rather than sort of chucking in 13 and hoping that one comes from the clouds. Because
but is that 5 per trainer or 5 per owner?
I think there's a bit of common sense. Certainly 5 per owner. I mean, trainers, it might be a bit different, but I just get the feeling sometimes with these owners that they're putting these horses in, and maybe that they're a non-stayer, or they have proven that they don't like the national course, but they're being put in anyway because it's the national, because they want a runner, and because they want as many as possible. And yes, that's fine, they pay the bills, but I think there should be a limit, certainly.
So maybe look at capping them to make it more fair. And I suppose in a way, are you saying that if owners just say, for example, are capped to like 5 horses for the Grand National, do you think that will make it fairer in respect of it will give other owners a chance to have runners in the race?
Yeah, the Grand National is the pinnacle of the sport. Cheltenham is as well. To have a Grand National runner means so much to everyone in the sport. And you only have to look last year when Phil Kirby had a runner. He had Don Poli, and how much it meant to the yard to just have a runner in the national and for him to come home safe. And I think he came around in 19th, didn't he, or something? But these up and coming yards and smaller owners as well. It means
Walking the Mill's a good example, isn't it?
Exactly. It means so much to the Robert Walford team to have Walk in the Mill and James Best on board as well. We heard from him a couple of months ago that it's a shame to detract from that and just have this feeling that it's being farmed, if we can avoid it. Because I think 40 is a huge number. There's more than enough room for everybody.
We're going to look ahead now to a couple of races, what we're going to see on Saturday at Newbury. And we need to mention the absolutely cracking renewal of the Game Spirit Chase, going off at 2.25. Altior, the red-hot favourite here, at 1-2. Of course, he's won 2 renewals of this particular race in previous years. Is the red hot favourite at 1-2? Do you expect him to win this race for a 3rd time?
Yeah, you have to, wouldn't you? I'm just looking back at the past winners because wrecking my brain thinking, why wasn't there a renewal last year? And of course, it will have been the equine flu, won't it? That seems like a long time ago, and hopefully we don't have a different kind of virus affect the racing this year in the coronavirus. But Altior, back to Altior, he arrives here after the experiment failed, so to say, at Ascot. Back over 2 miles now after the drama last month as well of Kempton, Willie Waity Run and the Big HA getting involved and all of that. And he seems like he's back in his familiar home now, doesn't he? He's back over 2 miles. And he's in a Grade 2 contest, and you would expect the class to shine through. He's a odds-on favourite at the time of recording. He's 2s on. He'll probably be a lot shorter. come race day. And there's a field of 10 at the moment as well. There'll probably be a few come out of here. Just looking at the number of runners, there's never been more than 8 this century, and in the last decade there's never been more than about 7. The last few renewals have been 3, 4, 4, 5, 4. So I'd expect a few of these to come out, but if a few of them turn up, the likes of So Royal, Kalashnikov, Dynamite Dollars, Bundaran, it would be a race for Altior, but I imagine that this is the sort of thing that doesn't really tell us too much about the Champion Chase. It just, we hope, will confirm that Altior is backfiring. The reports from the Nicky Henderson yard from Seven Barrows are that he's been working really, really well. So if he wins this like the old Altior, he will shorten back into, I imagine, around joint favouritism for the Champion Chase. And we're in store for a real 3-way humdinger, and it could be the race of the festival.
And at the time of recording as well, Nick, Dynamite Dollars is the 6-1 second favourite, which is very interesting with him, because last season he won 3 on the bounce, the King Henry VIII novices. He then went on to win the Wayward Lad, and then the Lightning novices, which always was run a few weeks ago at Doncaster. Now, this was the 2019 renewal. So he's had a lengthy layoff. And I suppose with him, it is a lengthy layoff. It depends how he turns up, really. Will he need the run?
You'd think so, wouldn't you? You'd imagine that this is more of a fact-finding mission than a real bona fide challenge to Altior. It's a good old barometer to see where he is. Paul Nicholls is more than capable of getting one ready first time out. So a 8-day break isn't the end of the world for him. Last time we saw him, he looked a real promising novice towards the top of that division. Maybe a mark against him is the fact that the novice chasers from last season haven't been ecstatic this year. I'm thinking of Duke de Geneva, the Arkle winner, really hasn't dazzled this year. So maybe that's a bit of a mark against him, but clearly talented. And this is a very good opportunity to sort of gauge where they are with him. He's got entries at Cheltenham next month. Imagine he'll strip fitter for this and then go there. So this might tell them whether he is a Champion Chase horse or whether they step him up in trip and send him to the Rhino.
The 3 o'clock is the Denman Chase, another Grade 2 contest at Newbury. Now, with this, it's Native River Might Bite. Now, we was very much looking forward to this in the many clouds, wasn't we, at Aintree just before Christmas? But unfortunately, Might Bite did unseat Nico de Boinville, so we didn't quite get that contest we was expecting, and at the same time, very much hoping for as well. But it's back on again at the time of recording, though. Native River is the 2-7 market leader. Might Bite the 13-2 second favourite. Unseated his rider in the many clouds and was pulled up in that handicap hurdle on New Year's Day.
Yeah, it's only been a couple of months since the Many Clouds Chase, and the betting for this race is going to have a wildly different outlook to it did at Aintree, because at Aintree, Native River was only 6-5 on. Of course, he had question marks about him on first time back and things like that.
Yeah.
Might Bite was 7-4 that day, and I mean, he never got going, did he? Because he fell early on, unseated his rider. And since then, of course, he hasn't shaped like a horse in love with the game at all over hurdles at Cheltenham, was pulled up. So it means that he arrives here as a 6-7-1 outsider against Native River. It really isn't a match race. It's a heavily odds-on favourite against a field he really should be beating. Native River has won this race in the past and then gone on to win the Gold Cup back in 2018. So we know that he has a pedigree in this race, and I think you're being really optimistic to see anything other than another win in this race for him, because he was so impressive at Aintree. I think the most impressive thing about that run in the Many Clouds Chase was not the fact that Might Bite never turned it into a spectacle, was the fact that he managed to brush away so easily 2 really good yardsticks in Black Court and Outlander. They're not top class horses, but they are smart performers, and they just couldn't go a yard with Native River. And I imagine that it will be a similar story here. I really fancy Native River for the Gold Cup this year. And this is just another stepping stone to Cheltenham. With the rain starts to come, who will be a real force this year in the staying division.
Just another one I want to mention as well is Bill. First run for Gary Moore on Saturday, should he turn up at Newbury. He's currently priced at 10-1, Nick.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? We were talking earlier about how Manila Rocco had lost his way. Etoile Phil perhaps did as well in the Gordon Elliott team. He was a multiple Grade 2 winner, graded winner in his pomp over both fences and hurdles, and didn't win for a long time. Admittedly, his last start for Elliott was a winning one, but it was in a 0-150 chase. So, yeah, he's interesting. It maybe the change of scenery. He's still only 10 will galvanise him, and we'll see something near his best. But even if we do see something near his best, he's got a real job on to topple Native River. And you imagine that this again will be a fact-finding mission for Connections. Yeah,
Native River, the 2-7, the favourite to win the Denman Chase again. Right then, that's the end of the Jumps Racing podcast. We hope you've enjoyed it, watching us on YouTube and also listening to the audio as well. Don't forget you can subscribe on YouTube so you know when the video will get uploaded. And don't forget for the audio as well, it's on Apple Music, SoundCloud and Spotify as well. And what I can tell you is that horseracing.net are giving away more Cheltenham Festival tickets this time for day 3. So if you want to be in with a chance of winning tickets for day 3, the Stayers Hurdle is the feature. All you need to do is get yourself onto your Twitter account. Make sure you follow at horseracing_net, and the details will be released in due course how you could win tickets for day 3 of the Cheltenham Festival. Hopefully I'll not be coughing in 7 days' time. But thank you very much to everybody who's watched it, myself and Nick, and thank you for all your listeners as well. As I say, the listenership is increasing week on week, so that is absolutely brilliant. But for myself and from Nick as well, wish you all a very happy week, and we look forward to doing another Jumps Racing podcast next week.